Hello and welcome to the Rob Burgess Show. I'm of course your host, Rob Burgess. On this, our 289th episode, our guest is Ken W. Good. Ken W. Good graduated from Hardin-Simmons University in 1982 with a Bachelor of Arts degree. He received a Master of Education degree in 1986 from Tarleton State University, a part of the Texas A&M system. In 1989, he received his law degree from Texas Tech School of Law, where he was a member of the Texas Tech Law Review. He has argued cases before the Supreme Court of Texas and the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals, along with numerous courts of appeals, including the United States Court of Appeals for the Fifth Circuit. He is the author of Goods on Bail, a practical guide created for bail industry professionals. In addition, he has written numerous articles on the subject of bail reform, including What Successful Bail Reform Looks Like. He is married and has 2 daughters. And now on to the show.
I always like to say probably the most important thing for people to know about me is I'm married and have 2 daughters. And my youngest daughter is 20, I think. Yeah, she's 20, but she had a bone marrow transplant when she was 5.
Wow.
And it was successful. She didn't make enough platelets when she was born, and now her platelets are normal. She has some arm issues, but she's great. And my oldest daughter is engaged to be married. I'm an attorney. My wife is also an attorney. I specialize in bail law. I've written articles across the country on what successful bail reform looks like, what bad bail reform looks like. It appears that we've seen a lot of bad bail reform over the years. And I've been an attorney for 30-something years. Graduated in 1989 from law school. I've argued cases before the Supreme Court of Texas, the Court of Criminal Appeals, because we have 2 high courts. I've argued some cases in the federal system. And I guess that's it.
Right. Well, I know that you are very interested, obviously professionally, and also other ways with bail law and policy. And I guess for just a good place to start would be just talk a little bit about what the bail system in this country is and looks like and how it currently exists. Because I don't think people understand this part of society very well, I guess, unless they've been in contact with it themselves. But
I think the biggest fallacy about the bail system is that people should not be required to they should just be let out of jail because there's a presumption of innocence. But that's an issue that always gets under my skin a little bit, because that issue was addressed by the courts probably decades ago, because that's not the purpose of bail. The presumption of innocence applies at trial, where you're presumed innocence. The jury can't give any presumption because you don't testify. So bail is what assurance are you going to give to the court that you're going to return to answer the charges that have been filed against you? That's all it is. What assurance? During COVID, we heard from our friends or the activists, that are always pushing for change, that, we don't really need any real assurance because everybody wants to resolve their criminal cases. And that was proven pretty clearly not to be true. When people don't give assurances, they don't come to court. And if they don't come to court, the criminal justice system is very unique, because you can't go forward with their criminal case without them, except in very limited situations. So you end up having to put their case on hold, and you have to wait for them to either be rearrested or come back willingly, so that you can move forward with the case. And so if people don't come, that creates backlogs. Backlogs creates pressure on courts to dismiss cases. And as you dismiss cases, criminals see that as a green light to commit more crime. And that's really what we've seen across the country when we do these experiments which I call bad bail reform, because that's what they are. They're experiments. They're not any tried and true tested method. They're just things we're trying out with great failure.
Well, you said a lot there, and I'll admit before we get started here that I think I disagree with the with what you're saying, but I am also not versed in this category of law, or you know what I mean. I'm like Larry King. I'm just that's the style interview I'm doing right now. I don't know
Well,
exactly what's going on. I'll ask a lot of questions that may not be
well,
you know what I mean.
what's the biggest thing you think you disagree about?
Think I disagree that I don't think people should be held in jail with, like you said, the presumption of innocence, I think matters a lot.
Well, wait, before we move
But
on
I'm sorry,
though,
yes.
when you tie the hands of judges and say, "Hey, you have no choice, but you have to release them," which is
Yes.
really what we're doing in all this bad bail reform. Like in New York, they made a list of crimes, and on the list of crimes, if you're on that list, the judge has no discretion, no matter
Hmm.
how long your criminal history is, no matter how many times you've committed that crime, you have to be released with on no bail. Now, I mean, I think reasonable people would say, well, why doesn't the judge have the discretion? Our whole criminal justice system is we don't treat everybody the same because someone who's got a 10-year criminal history of all kinds of arrests shouldn't be treated as the same as you or me who doesn't have any arrests. And so the bad bail reform is kind of a cookie cutter criminal justice system where we're forcing judges to release people no matter how long their criminal history is, and we're trying to treat everybody the same. I think that's a major fallacy of these bad experiments that we have been forcing on the public.
Okay. One thing I think is that people that have the means can always make bail, and people without the means, there's been studies done about most Americans can't come up with a couple $1,000s in case of an emergency. Like they just don't have it. And
Well, but they're
like
not putting up a cash bond, so if their bond is only a couple $1,000s, they're only putting up $200.
I I don't know. It seems like a way in which people that don't have money are disadvantaged. I don't maybe
Well,
that's not the case, but it seems that way to me.
but if we go back to uh, my premise that people should are the whole premise of the criminal justice system is that we don't treat people the same. So people with money should be treated by giving a bigger assurance, and people that don't have money give a smaller assurance. But I mean, people like to call it having skin in the game. I really I call it having family involvement. I mean, you can see so much over during COVID. There was a DA in Yolo County in California that did a study because he kept all of his statistics, and he compared two individuals, or he compared people released, one released on the private surety bail system, one released on simple release, which is just your promise. And according to his statistics, someone released, and they're both nonviolent offenses. Someone released on simple release has a 200% greater chance of committing a new violent offense in the next 18 months. And so, I mean, that's a really devastating uh, statistic. And you would go, if I was a family member, I would never want my loved one released on simple release, because just that type of release can put them in a worse position in the criminal justice system if they commit a new violent offense in the next 18 months.
Yeah, I don't know. It's tricky. I mean, I feel like if people have to come up with this money, I feel like a lot of these crimes are of crimes of desperation to begin with. Like the things they're getting in trouble with, to start with, are they're already desperate, and having this barrier to them getting equal treatment under the law seems unfair to me, I guess. And
Well,
I
wait,
think,
but
yeah,
it seems like you're arguing that we should have a cookie cutter release system where we should treat everybody the same, and
I
I disagree with that.
Okay. Well, I guess that's our disagreement. I don't
Well, but I think I think
know.
you would agree that someone has who has a 10-year criminal history shouldn't be treated the same as a first-time offender, or I would hope you would agree with that.
Well, yeah, I get, okay, I understand that. I feel
And
like,
so,
okay, go on.
no, no, go ahead. I feel like that, there are studies on what affects someone's stay in the county jail pre-conviction, and
Okay.
what the number one impact or the one number one uh thing that impacted their length of stay was not ability to pay. The number one thing that impacted their length of pretrial stay in the county jail was their criminal history, which it should be. Because at some point, if you have a criminal history, then it's not the fact that you can't afford to pay, it's the fact that the judge has set your bond based on your criminal history. And so you're not there because you're poor, you're there because of your criminal history.
But is your criminal history partially because you were poor? And do things that, once people get trapped in the system and they, one thing compounds on another, I could see how a series of events that, again, they may be wrong for doing it in the first place,
But
but
but does that mean that poor career criminals should not be punished?
no, not punished. I mean, if they're guilty, I mean, yeah, they need to do the time they're sentenced to, but that's not what we're talking about. Where these people aren't,
Well, okay, so
haven't been convicted yet, right?
but there's a segment. Okay, so charitable bail funds. Uh,
Mhm.
I've been on some podcasts talking about them, and one of the things I learned on talking about charitable bail funds is they don't really bond out the people that the private industry bond out, because the private industry gets contacted by family and friends, and uh, once you burn the bridge, once you're a career criminal, you've been arrested so many times, you've burned through all your friends, you've burned through all your family. And so, historically, those people need to stay in jail because they're career criminals. But we have found that one of the reasons why charitable bail funds are getting in trouble is those are the people that are going to the charitable bail funds,
Mhm.
and the charitable bail funds don't really know that much about bail and how the criminal justice system works. They just want to get people out of jail. And so that's how they've gotten in trouble. And, a couple of people from, I think, like the bail fund have said, I really don't look at their criminal history. Well, that's when they get in trouble.
Mhm. I, I I hear you saying that you want family involvement. And is your ultimate goal then with all of this, you think that people who have more involved family do better and don't get in trouble as much? So you would argue that this is a way to involve people's families more in their lives?
I would.
Is that fair?
I do think it's fair. I think that once the family, well, I think it sends a powerful message
Okay.
when the family's involved and they're saying, like your family gets involved because you've screwed up and you've gotten arrested for the third time, and you're feeling pretty down. You're poor. You're depressed, and and you don't feel like you have any way forward. But your family comes in and says, "I think you still have value, and we're going to stand up for you, and we're going to help you get out because we still think you can turn this around." Versus, the simple release mechanism, we're not holding them any length of time. They get out before the paperwork's even completed by the arresting officer, and if they're on drugs, they're not even down from their high yet. And so, the poor person's drug rehab is ended. And so I think that, yes, I think that the family involvement that the private industry provides is something that's invaluable to the criminal justice system. And the experiments that we're doing with simple release are destroying that.
What is the bail system in other countries? How unique is our system and how does it compare to what is being done elsewhere or has been done?
Well, I don't know if I can speak very in depth about other systems because
Mhm.
I in the United States or in Texas really, but I will say that the bail system that we have in the United States came with us through the common law, through our past. So it's been around for 200 years. So it's the bail system that we have probably originated in England. Now, that bail system they have in England is very different, but I think a lot of what you're going to see in other places is uh, probably mostly a detain or release system, and mostly detain, which is kind of what the federal system is. But I don't like those systems because, like the federal system, when they did the reform to try to get more people out of jail, and I think they were probably at 30% being held pretrial. Now it's, as a result of the reform, it's 75% that's being held pretrial. And I think when you move to a release or detain system, you end up having more people detained. Look, that's kind of the New Jersey plan, and they, set up a statewide pretrial services department. It went bankrupt. They had to do a statewide tax increase, and I think they had to do a second one after that. So that's the reason why no state has proposed the New Jersey plan since New Jersey. So, which was heavy on supervision. So all the reforms that we've seen since the New Jersey plan has been light on supervision because they can't afford to pay for it. And so that's why you just see a simple release. They'll return on their promise. No, they won't. I mean, and I would just say, I know that nobody likes the private surety bail system. They're an easy target, but the problem is there's not an alternative that works. There was a retired judge who's a city mayor that was on a News Nation town hall, and she said, until you have an alternative to the private surety bail system that has the same high accountability and the same low failure to appear rate, then you don't really have an alternative. And so I think the biggest point I would say is I hear what you're saying, but there's still to this day not an alternative to the private bail system that performs on its level.
But wouldn't it be the case that say somebody doesn't show up for court, right? Are they just going to live off the grid for the rest of their life? I mean, maybe some people would, but eventually you're going to have to go somewhere and file some paperwork with somebody, or you'll get pulled over on for having a broken taillight or whatever. And then, you know what I mean? Doesn't this happen already with people that are delinquent on their child support? You know what I mean? Like that you can't get pulled over if you're delinquent on your child support, or you'll go to jail right there. So
well, but that's the point. You get back into the system by being arrested again on a new crime, and then depending on how severe your original crime is, you could get also arrested for bail jumping.
I'm not saying new crimes. I'm just saying you come into contact with the system, the government at some point. And at that point, aren't there things called bench warrants where it's like anytime you see this person, they're arrested, they have to come in for this?
That's not what a bench warrant is. A bench warrant is a command to bring them from like prison or something, but it would be a warrant. So anytime you fail to appear, you have a warrant. But if you have a traffic stop, then that would be a ticket. But they would check your warrant. I mean, we've had officers. We have Damon Allen in Texas, where we had a major bail reform statute change to strengthen the bail system, not weaken it, and it was because of exactly what you're talking about. A guy was at a traffic stop and he was stopped and he knew he had a warrant. So while the police officer was checking his warrants, he pulled out his gun and shot and killed him. And
so you're saying that police shouldn't be burdened with that. It should be the system we have now, basically the bail system, right? Like it's the assurance is that you put something up, not that you will just be, in society and then you can't ever get pulled over or try to renew your license or anything.
I'm not saying that the police should not be burdened with that. They are burdened with that, but we should not have them solely responsible for that when we have a system that's currently working where the private industry is ensuring appearance. Now, most of the time when little Johnny fails to appear, then their relationship with the bonding company is such that they trust them and that they can get them to come back pretty quickly. But there are situations where they go and get them, or they get recovery agents to get them. But that's all at no cost to the taxpayers. And so why should we replace a system that's working very well and 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 in its place would be something that's not working as well and causes a great number of dismissals of cases because people fail to show up and then they're scared to come back.
Right. Are you at all personally concerned about over incarceration, like as an issue? Do you think that we are we incarcerating the right amount of number of people, or do you have any criticisms for how the state we live in with that?
I do not believe that we're over incarcerating people if we are seeing crime increase. Look at California where they put um, a cap on how many people they can hold in their prison system, and it wasn't because of any. That wasn't because of well, what it was because of was they couldn't provide proper medical care, and they didn't release the people that needed medical care. They just released across the board, and the Supreme Court of the United States, in a 5-4 opinion, affirmed, but the dissents, uh, which would probably be the majority today, but the dissent was saying when you release from state prison the equivalent of a brigade of criminals, you can't expect anything else but for crime to increase. A lot of the bail reform that we're seeing, like in California, they will not build additional capacity. So that's forcing them to enact laws to uh, change felonies to misdemeanors, which is causing crime to go up, and they're hiding the statistics. Where New York, they're talking about closing Rikers and having some community jails, but with less capacity, which also does the same thing. When it'll require the release of a third of the people that are currently in Rikers. Uh, every time in our past, when we released large numbers of people from prison on this "we feel safer" uh, thing, like we did in the 60s, crime goes up. And then we have a disagreement over how to address crime. But I would say one of the things that I would point out with your over incarceration argument is that the thing that gets lost in the debate is we have closed essentially all of our mental health facilities. And we've really moved those people to the prison system.
Yeah, well, I agree with that. I've been a local journalist and I've reported on our local county jail, and that's absolutely the case. I mean, the local sheriff basically said this is the de facto mental health facility in the county.
Well,
county jail.
And the real and one of the problems with this terrible bad bail reform is we're currently making mental health a king's X. We're wanting them not to be in the prison system or the county jails anymore, which I don't say that is a bad thing or a good thing. The problem is we don't have an alternative for them, and so that's why we have now this revolving door in the jail where someone gets arrested, they get in the jail, they get on their meds, they get controllable, they get released because they dismiss their case because they got a mental issue. Then they get out of jail, they get off their meds, and then they get uncontrollable, and then they get rearrested or arrested on a new charge, and it's just a revolving door. And we have to find a solution for the mental health, and I'm really worried about that because I don't think we have a solution for that. Because they don't have a constituency that argues for them and defends their funding. Because, when we disbanded our mental health facilities, it's because every time the county needed to save money, they were cutting their budgets. And so we had class action lawsuits being filed across the country for unbearable circumstances in these mental health facilities. And so, President Trump has said he's in favor of bringing those back. But until they have a constituency that's defending them, it just seems like that we'll have the same exact problem we had the last time. And so I don't think we have a real solution for the mental health epidemic that we have, where we have nowhere else to put them but in jail, and we wait till they commit a serious enough crime where we don't dismiss it. That's what we're currently doing. As long as it's a misdemeanor, they'll be dismissed. But when they commit a violent felony, then they're suddenly competent and they put them in prison. And that's a terrible, terrible way to treat these people. And I like to say that if you and I could figure out a solution for the mental health crisis that we're having, we could become billionaires, because there's really not one currently. And the King's X just releasing people is not, it's it's just feeding, the problem. It's making it worse, not better.
Yeah. Well, I think we found an area of agreement there, because I definitely hear you on that issue for sure. Um, but yeah. Well, I mean, are you at all concerned about the money aspect of this? The private prison industry is big business. It is traded on the stock exchange. You can buy funds that invest in private prisons. I forget what the statistics are, and it varies from location to location, but the amount that it costs to incarcerate a person every year, astounding. I know not everyone would benefit from this, but I bet you, some of those people, if you just gave them that amount of money, they probably would find a way to stay out of prison. I'm just guessing. Not everybody, of course, the violent criminals excluded, and all that, but people that are just crimes of sheer desperation. Maybe they could use some services or some straight up cash. Who knows? Maybe that would help. That seems to do some good in people's lives.
But don't we already provide all that? Don't we
Do
already
we?
provide housing? Don't we
How?
already, in our urban areas, don't we provide
No.
housing? Don't we provide food? Don't we provide
Not
free
written. No,
medical care? I
no.
mean,
We
I
do
mean,
not have a safety
really?
net in this
Really?
country. It's
We
compared to other first world countries. No, we do not have a safety net in this country.
we do have a safety net. Now, it may not be as good as you would like for it to be, but we
Well,
do have a safety net. I mean, I've seen like we're spending a whole bunch of money on food stamps, and I know food stamps is not the name of it anymore. But I mean, we've got all these
EBT.
programs that
Yeah.
we hear about. What's a SNAP program or something now, and then we have all these programs like, I mean, aren't we hearing about programs in Minnesota all the time that have all these allegations of fraud? And I mean, the problem that we have is every time you have one of these programs, it turns out to be the fraud for it is just incredible.
Okay,
And
but
I
my
don't
my
know, but
my
I
point.
do not agree with you that we can just pay people to not commit crime. I
Why
do not
not?
believe
I
that is
think
the
it has been
solution.
studied. They've done studies and they've done experiments with this,
You know
and
what? They have
it
done
has,
studies on that. Look at the
yes,
studies on paying people to go to school. Those didn't
yeah.
work out well. I mean, no, that's not a solution. Now,
Okay, all
I
right.
disagree that we have low-level offenders in our prisons anymore because we've kind of gotten rid of the three strikes you're out. I mean, most of the, and I mean, our jails are full of violent criminals. I mean, violent people. Do we really want to release them? I don't think so.
Have
I
you
mean,
personally? Have you?
it is
Sorry,
a
go on. I didn't mean to do that.
valid criminal justice theory to if you can't stop yourself from committing crime, then the public can demand that you be isolated away from them. That's what gives us public safety. Do you want to tie the hands of our judges and the citizens so that we can't have that right to do that? So that we are then prey to the criminals. You don't have a right to public safety because we have a right not to be incarcerated.
Well, yeah, I mean, my point is just mostly on that issue is that, I am more concerned with why people commit crimes, and I'd like to get to the root source of that. And I do think sometimes it is just you're born into terrible circumstances, and we don't all have good families to like you and I might be lucky to come from people that actually have care about us, but that was purely luck. There's no reason that I couldn't have been born someone completely without any kind of boots or bootstraps or anything. You know what I mean? No boots to pull myself up by. And I think one of the things that separates people of different classes is how many second chances you get. You know what I mean? Like I feel like people that are born into just poverty and desolation, if they screw up once, that's it. They have a black mark on their record, and it's the prison pipeline, and you know where they're going to end up. And it's like if somebody of means screws up, they get a second chance. They think the judge thinks about their bright future, and they well, maybe we'll wipe this off your record. You know what I mean? And they get that second chance. And I feel like the system that we have broadly now rewards people that are already I know you said you want it, you're already wanting this to be uneven. So I guess I don't know what I'm trying to convince you of here, but
Well, but the criminal
that's the way I
justice
feel.
system, the criminal justice system was never intended to treat everybody the same. I mean, we only want that amount of pressure that's going to be applied to somebody to make them to turn around and be a productive citizen. Now, the amount of pressure that they would have to give me is not very much because I'm a wimp. I would, I'm, pretty much a law follower, and so if I screw up, I'm going to be mad, more mad at myself. But I'm not. I mean, I've been successful. I'm an attorney, but I mean, I came from very poor means. I came from a town of 1,200 people. I used to move
Oh, so did I.
irrigation
Yeah.
pipe in the peanut fields in the summer. And so,
But I bet you had a family that loved you and would
well,
if
true.
you got in trouble would be there to stand up for you. And not everybody has that. That's all I'm saying.
Well, but there are families that didn't have that don't commit crime as well.
No, absolutely. But some of them do, or some of them, you know what I mean? It certainly it luck and circumstance, and I think it counts for a lot. I know we like to think we are
Well,
the
but okay, so let me make
founders
this
of
point.
things, but yeah,
I'm,
go
you
on.
know, Getting a second chance is one thing, but we've got examples in Houston, Texas, where I am right now, where people under this terrible bail reform experiment that they're doing in Houston or Harris County is someone fails to show up for court 7 times and they get the same bond. So they get a simple release every time. Or I mean, I've seen one example of 17 failures to appear. So I don't have a problem with a second chance, but I have a problem with someone getting 15, 16, 17 chances without any consequences. Now, I think what you're talking about, a second chance, is really on the bail, I mean on the conviction side, not
Sure.
really on the pretrial release. So that's a whole different subject.
Yeah,
I mean,
maybe.
I don't know if I'm
Maybe it
going to
is.
disagree with you much on that, but I will say, I mean, once you've shown that you can't abide or you can't show up for court under simple release, I don't know if I would give you a third chance on simple release. And if you can't show up 4 times, I don't care what size bond your is. I think the court has the right to hold you because the whole point was what assurance you'd give the court that you'd return, and you have shown that whatever assurance you gave, you didn't return. So I think at some point they have a right to hold you, even on a misdemeanor, until your case is presented.
Well, I noticed that
Why
we have
not?
about yeah, I noticed we have about 5 minutes left, and I'd love to talk with you more about this. Maybe another time. You're welcome back. But yeah, is there anything else on this subject that your closing argument, counselor?
My closing argument. Oh, that's a good question. My closing argument would be we have the private surety bail system has been around for 200 years, and it's been around for that long because it does one thing and one thing very well and gets people to go to court. If we want to get people's cases resolved quickly, give victims justice, get someone found guilty, innocent, and move on to then the punishment, the quickest way to do that is through the private surety bail system. There's no other release mechanism that compares, and anyone that tells you different is not being honest with you, and they're not being honest because they know. And so we're trying these experiments, which we're calling simple release across the country, but they're just experiments, and they've been an abject failure, uh, causing failure to appear to skyrocket, backlogs to increase, pressure to dismiss cases, and then defendants see that as a green light to commit more crime. And so we should not. We should be doing what Texas has done, and that is strengthen the criminal justice system, not weaken it through tying the hands of judges. And until we can come up with an alternative, we should be leaning more on what works and not trying these experiments that are all failures.
Great. Well, thank you again for taking all the time this evening to discuss this. I appreciate it. Even though we disagreed on many things, I think it was still a stimulating conversation, and it made me think about things. So I appreciate that, and I hope people will, kind of research this on your own and make up your own minds, because it's definitely something worth thinking about. But the last question I always ask before we go is, what music have you been listening to lately?
I just traveled 4 hours in my car, and I don't
Mm.
really listen to music.
Mm.
I don't listen to music at all.
At all? Ever?
You know what? I mean, I'll listen to Taylor Swift, and that sounds really
Okay.
hokey, but
No, I love Taylor
I have
Swift.
followed Taylor Swift from her beginning
Yeah,
all the
she's
way till
great.
now. So
Yeah,
I'm not really big on her more recent albums. I probably,
sure.
her
Well, you got
first
in on the
couple
you
albums.
got in on the country wave. So of
Yeah,
course
probably.
that's what you're yeah, I love it all. It's great.
But I'm not really. I mean, I'm not a person that listens to music when I'm traveling for 4 hours. I'm either on the phone the whole time or maybe listening to a podcast, but probably not. Uh,
Wow.
but mostly just on the phone or just being quiet. Oh my gosh, I like quiet
So
sometimes.
you're somebody that can be alone with their own thoughts? Wow.
Yeah, my wife and I were traveling, and she was like, "Why don't you have some music playing?" I'm like, "I don't listen to music." And so, so
That's
yeah.
great. Well, you must have a really like strong mind then, because I'm always like, oh, what I got to put something on here.
Well, I think also I'm always on the phone. I mean,
Sure, absolutely. Yeah.
when my father-in-law was alive, he used to travel with me when I was, doing things every day. And he's like, "Have you ever noticed that you're on the phone from the moment we leave until the moment you get back?" And I'm like, "Yeah, yeah, I
That's great.
am."
That's great. Well, hey, thank you again. I really appreciate it. It was a great talk. And like I said, yeah, you're welcome to come back anytime. So
Well, thank you, sir.
thank you. Have a good evening.
You too. Bye.
Bye bye.